You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
This building that we're in was the Green Mountain Racetrack originally. It's a very cool cavernous structure of, I think, steel, concrete, and oak. And it's abandoned. It's got the wabi-sabi going on. It's breaking down, which is always a very curious thing that draws us.
We've got in front of us, there used to be a racetrack, and now there's grass and greenery and trees coming up through where the concrete used to be, and the earth is just reclaiming it and taking it back like it always does.
Hey there, my name is Blake, and I have just a quick note before we get started. Actually, it's more like a recommendation because this podcast is an immersive audio storytelling experience, part fact, part fantasy. It's best that you listen with headphones on, imagination on, and everything else turned off. Welcome to Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast.
Man stands on the brink of destruction, but could it be that man's ultimate fate has been known for over 2,000 years? Man believed himself too sophisticated for prophecies, but now prophetic patterns exist that cannot be ignored, cannot be forgotten. Explore the terrifying meanings of the ancient prophecies. Face the chain of events predicted.
In the summer of 2023, I explored an abandoned Greyhound racetrack in Vermont with my friend Julie, who you've met.
I don't know. It's probably all about the gay.
If you recall, Julie is a highly sociable person and can talk to any stranger.
Oh, what's that on the other side of that? Anything?
While we were poking about the ruins of the Green Mountain racetrack, a giant abandoned green and white structure right on the border of Massachusetts, Julie noticed a couple of people approaching. Now, my first instinct in these kinds of situations is to be alert and on guard and maybe even bolt. But not Julie. She called them over, loudly, much to my chagrin. Enter Dina and Mike, two perfectly kind and approachable folks, both in their late 50s, both devout Christians, and both believers in what Bloomberg calls the QAnon of Architecture. The Tartarian Empire conspiracy theory.
Have you ever heard of the Tartarian Empire? There's this theory going around that at one point in time, the entire Earth was civilized with a whole civilization.
Today I'm going to provide proof, definitive proof, that there was actually a great nation in the past.
They're hiding an entire chapter of our history. How did people with horses and wooden carts build massive, intricate buildings like these? They tell us they used hammers.
The history of this atypical belief system could be its very own podcast episode, or even series. And perhaps one day it will be. But for now, I can summarize it very simply. Followers of this unusual conspiracy theory believe that abandoned spaces like the Green Mountain racetrack were actually part of a, quote, vast technologically advanced Tartarian Empire emanating from North Central Asia or thereabouts, end quote, with vast cities and infrastructure all over the world, again according to Bloomberg. The belief is that after Tartaria imploded, these majestic buildings, think New York City's Singer Building, that were once part of its grandiose empire were quite literally buried, and the history behind it was erased. So yeah, that sounds like a conspiracy theory to me. But in many ways, I believe we all have a conspiracy theorist or two living inside us. At least I do. Rather than draw my own conclusions about the Tartarian Empire conspiracy theory, I'd like to introduce you to Dina, a sweet and sensitive musician with a story of her own. When I first taped this interview, I had no idea that it was going to become an episode, and I didn't even know what this podcast was going to become, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And turns out, when you record on an iPhone inside of a giant stadium that's empty and abandoned when it's raining, The sound quality isn't great, and most of the tape that I got with Dina was unusable. But Dina kept bouncing around in my head, and then I thought, well, this is Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast after all, and we do blur the line between fact and fantasy here. So, true to this podcast's nature, I hired an actress and a dear friend, Terri Weagant, to recreate the sonic persona of Dina. These are all Dina's words.
My name is Dina Smith. I've been a semi-professional to professional musician since I was a teenager.
It's always easy for me to connect with musicians. We speak the same language, so when I started to chat with Dina, it was a good place for us to get acquainted because I didn't know if she trusted me yet, and I didn't know how comfortable I was hearing her story. Yet.
There's a lot of music in our family. I play guitar, mandolin, and some bass. I play rock and roll, I play swing. Right now, I am playing mandolin for a little bluegrass album. I've released 2 albums. They're both on Spotify. Dina Chappelle, which is my middle name.
As I began to learn more about Dina, I began to relate to her more too, in the sense that she's also a multidisciplinary artist and thinker. One of her current projects is the role of ghostwriter.
I'm also ghostwriting a book for a gentleman who went through the Liberian Civil War. It's kind of intense.
But the thing that really connected us was Dina's background in mental health, which influences her work as a maker and explorer.
And I'm also a therapist sometimes. That's what I got my master's degree in. I went to Goddard. It was a wonderful experience, and I would absolutely do it again. It's a very interdisciplinary study, and they're pretty wide open as to what you can bring in, what you want to look at. I was, of course, curious about music and the transporting power of music, and I was very interested in psychedelics. They would only let me do so much with that, but I was able to write about it and research, standing on the shoulders of all the researchers that have researched them from the 40s on.
Mushrooms grow best in dark cellars, where the temperature is low and even.
As someone who used to microdose psilocybin as part of my daily wellness routine, I kind of understood Dina's connection to psychedelics. Though as an addict, when I was microdosing, I had to be on guard every single time I took my morning mushroom tablet to be sure that I wasn't falling back into addict land. But in a safe space, I understood what Dina was talking about.
First, spores are obtained from fully ripe mushrooms and look like brown dust particles.
It heals people, and it opens people up to other ideas, doors of perception.
When harvested, mushrooms are carefully pulled with the stems intact. The cultivated mushrooms look more evenly formed and wholesome than the natural growth.
Dina grew up on Long Island, and much like my profile of Jimmy Buff from episode 10 of season 1, her first experience at an abandoned space was a building in the middle of the Long Island woods.
My sister and I and some of our friends had just walked into these woods, and we came across this building. It was so weird. A huge, enormous, white brick abandoned building. And I walk in, and the sun hit all the broken glass that was on the building. It was just a big explosion of these crazy things. And I can remember I felt that feeling that you described, anemoia.
What Dina began to describe to me was almost identical to my first experience with an abandoned space. The abandoned dairy farm from my childhood that I talk about so much on this podcast.
It was like mythological proportions. It was a presence. There was something about those buildings, even when they were dead. they were alive.
Dina seemed to be familiar with the Green Mountain racetrack, and come to find out, in one chapter of her life story, she spent more than 2 decades in the area.
I lived up the road in Bennington, I would say from 1981 to early 2000s in that area.
In southwestern Vermont is Bennington, the first town to be chartered west of the Connecticut River.
We moved there when I was about 14 or 15, and I left when I was in my early 30s.
When you come to Vermont, you will hate to leave, for its rugged beauty, its industry, and its people make it one of the foremost states in this land of ours.
This building that we're in was the Green Mountain racetrack originally. It's a very cool, cavernous structure of, I think, steel, concrete, and oak. And it's abandoned. And it's got the wabi-sabi going on. It's breaking down, which is always a very curious thing that draws us. So we've got in front of us, there used to be a racetrack, and now there's grass and greenery and trees coming up through where the concrete used to be, and the earth is just reclaiming it and taking it back like it always does. They raced greyhound dogs. When I first moved here, they were just closing it down because it's not a humane thing. And for years after, we would see the greyhounds that had survived the industry having been adopted and walking up and down Main Street. But I was here for Lollapalooza in the mid-90s and a few other events. And then, of course, just coming to wander around and see what's going on with it.
Keep in mind, at this point in our conversation, I had no idea that Dina's belief system encompassed a pretty far-fetched theory like Tartaria. I assumed that, like me, she and her husband Mike picked up the hobby of exploring abandoned spaces because of the pandemic.
This is my husband Mike. This is one of the things we like to do, explore places like this. I think both of us, our whole lives, have been curious about it, but as of late, we sometimes enjoy conspiracy theories. I'm just going to say it.
I could feel my breath catch in my chest. I always focus on practicing empathy and understanding first, no matter how outlandish someone's truth can feel. But sometimes it takes me a moment. After all, we'd already connected as artists and thinkers. So why should I let a different kind of belief system get in the way now?
Things that we've been learning about and looking into, and we're in our 50s, so we've been around for a while. You've seen some changes in the country. Some of it's kind of pretty shifty. We've been learning about something that people have been referring to as either Tartaria or the millennial reign. What we've been learning is about the buildings that... Okay, so in America, we have these phenomenal buildings that are just as phenomenal as the ones you see in Europe, right? And we don't have ruins here, like you see in Greece. And for some reason, we don't talk about it. And so it's like, no, you're not looking at a castle, right? We were saying this today. You're not looking at a castle, you're looking at an armory. You're looking at a post office. You're looking at a college campus. That's not a castle. No. That was put up there in the 1800s. So the horse and buggy built these phenomenal structures is just not adding up. And that's extremely intriguing to us.
Mayan ruins have been discovered throughout this entire area. But even at their best, ruins are similar to the last pages of a history book.
Where now there are only silent ruins, in that day there were bustling streets, busy shops and marketplaces, temples and public buildings. This was the center of empire for Julius Caesar.
This tiny spot of green in the middle of the desert, now but a huddle of ruins, once rang with the sounding of great names. King Solomon built the city to commemorate the ground on which David slew Goliath. These ruined pillars helped to raise many
observations from observatories which closely resemble those of our own.
We often feel pretty, people will shut us down pretty quickly if we try and talk about it. There's so many strong ideologies. Everybody just wants to war against each other and prove each other wrong. And it's gotten to a level of sickness, like a mental illness, so we just don't want to argue with people. We just want to explore. We're just human beings. We want to know where we came from, and we want to know our real history and what we're really capable of.
I'd never heard of Tartaria, the millennial reign, any of it. While it all sounded completely bonkers to me, I enjoyed talking to Dina as a human so much by this point that it didn't matter. But as I began to press her about why these conspiracy theories spoke so deeply to her, why she believed in them so strongly, the conversation took a left turn that I wasn't expecting.
We are believers in Christ. We love Christ. But the idea that the millennial reign already happened, I guess, is that particular conspiracy theory. And then there's also the idea of Tartaria, which includes these incredible buildings, these phenomenal structures with spires and beautiful detail. That's so, what else would inspire something like that if not God,
But I didn't know. And suddenly, I definitely didn't know what to do. I have a long, traumatic history with Christianity, so I felt myself begin to shut down. As a kid, I grew up in a Presbyterian church. I was extremely active in it. Church on Sundays, youth group Wednesdays, choir, summer theater camp. While those spaces of creativity and community have many happy memories attached to them, they also have a lot of bad memories, too. Growing up, I didn't know the feelings I felt towards men meant that I was gay. I just knew that being gay was a very bad thing. They talked about it at church a lot.
I want to see you. I want to see you.
At some point, when my parents found out, I had to go have a chat with a pastor at the church. And during that conversation, he actually came out to me, but said that he'd learned to combat those dark forces at work that drew him to men, especially the ones he'd experimented with in his 20s. He has a wife and 2 kids. Ever since leaving the church, it's become somewhat of a sticking point in my side, and I firmly believe that Christianity is largely responsible for the chaos and destruction we see in the world today. I also knew that Dina was a person who didn't know any of my story, so I stopped the conversation and let her know how I was feeling. And her response was so understanding.
And yet, here are 2 completely lovely people who have a deep-seated belief.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, we hate mainstream media. We just fucking hate it because it's just trying to get us to hate each other. And it's working on a pretty big scale. But there's also people like us who are drawn to places like this for whatever reason. There's a reason. We're here for a reason at this time. you are being called to do what you're being called to do, so are we. And we just collided in the middle today. Two roads diverged. It's incredible.
Dina and me were back on the same page again, and that felt good. So I steered the conversation back towards abandoned spaces.
What other abandoned spaces have you visited that stick out to you?
Recently, I've been hiking, and I've been looking for the really old stuff, and there's tons of it in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee is Wisconsin's major city, and one of the most striking examples of modern architecture to be found here is the Milwaukee County War
Just tons of
Memorial
it.
Center.
These tumbled down, massive blocks, right angles, and it's amazing.
As modern as the space age are the three glass domes of the Horticultural Conservatory in Milwaukee's Mitchell Park.
As far as around here, as far as the millennial rain stock is what we call it, that's like the old insane asylums.
As is the case with many urban explorers, there's an obsession attached to the hobby, like a calling from a higher power of sorts. I asked Dina what it was that kept her and Mike coming back to the abandoned buildings of America, aside from Tartaria or the millennial rain.
It's inspiring. We're both creative people, so it's inspiring for one, but I also come to these places and I get that feeling. Usually there's no one else around. You just feel like it's almost like you have an exclusive audience with God, the history of the place. But we've also found some ruins in this country, absolute ruins. Older than this. And I haven't seen the Parthenon, but it's the same era. Pyramids all around, underground, under us now. That's what I think. And it's an amazing, inspiring, intriguing world we live in. And our history is more than we know. And it's just fun to ask the questions. I mean, we know we may never get all the answers, and we probably won't get all the answers, but damn, it is so fun to ask the questions.
I grew up asking questions. I remember going to Mesa Verde in Colorado as a kid, and I remember seeing Cliff Palace for the first time, the largest cliff dwelling in the park.
This is Mesa Verde National Park in southwestern Colorado. Years ago, it was the home of a remarkable tribe of Indians whose civilization flourished and then suddenly disappeared.
The structures, intricately built underneath these giant rock overhangs, felt magical to me. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about the history, the formative how and why. I just remember knowing that leaving some magic in the story behind these stunning pieces of architectural triumph felt important.
This is Cliff Palace, the largest cliff dwelling in the Mesa Verde. A few hundred feet below the mesa top and cut into the face of the cliff. The city's built in a cave measuring 325 feet long and 60 feet high at the opening. The cave cuts back 90 feet into the mesa.
I mentioned this Mesa Verde memory to Dina, and she agreed that there was something magical about it, even as adults. And it took us down a rabbit hole I didn't expect, though by that point, I guess I didn't expect anything but rabbit holes with Dina.
It's a lens you're looking through. There are some explanations, and they're pretty freaking wild. We love New Mexico. We love it, love it, love it. And we can't get enough. And there's this content creator on YouTube. There's many, of course, and you got to weed through them. But he came up with this very interesting concept. He had a piece of wood, and he showed you that when you clamp a battery on it with electricity, you can run a certain current through this piece of fiber, and it burns into this pattern, kind of like a lightning pattern into the wood, and they're raised ridges. And then if you go to Google Earth and you look at these bases and you zoom out, you're seeing the same pattern. So there was this massive event, like some kind of event, and there was a lot of heat, and there was this big flood, and that's not just from the Christians. Everybody thinks there was at least one big flood. And I think there's also a major heat melting thing that happens. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's everywhere. Here, it's not as easy to see because everything's covered in greenery, but when you're out west, it is so stark. When we were in New Mexico this past April, we ended in Los Alamos, which was the weirdest thing I have ever done, and I will never go there again as long as I live. It was like being in a parody episode of South Park. It was creepy. When you're standing there in the town of Los Alamos and you look at this mountain, it looks like the deadest thing you've ever seen. It's just black. It's beyond. What is that about?
By the end of Dina's tangent, I had no idea where she had just gone, but I could respect the fact that clearly she was a woman who was able to use her imagination.
As I've tried to understand what it is about abandoned buildings that's always fascinated me, I've thought a lot about the mythologicalization of one's own story, one's own upbringing. There was an abandoned house in the woods that my friends and I frequented as teenagers. The stories that we created inside that space, while all probably untrue, became our truth. And that truth helped each of us to understand our bigger story, to contextualize our existence a bit more. I wondered if Dina understood that.
Our imaginations are pretty powerful, and they have the capability to do some pretty cool stuff, and the mythologizing of upbringing is everything.
It is. Have you read any of Carl Jung's books?
Never.
Very dense. I studied a lot of it in college, and Joseph Campbell, too, and all that stuff. I think that it's old school, but it's very thorough. And what's cool, I found with Joseph Campbell stuff, the reading is extremely dense, but because of the time when he was in the zeitgeist, he was filmed a lot. And you can go on YouTube and find old lectures of him, and then you really get a sense of what he's talking about and what he's saying. He did this whole special with that famous journalist Bill Moyers. It was a week-long mini-series called The Power of Myth.
There was much of the adventure in the old stories is where they go into regions that no one's been in before. Well, we've now conquered the planet, so there are no empty spaces for the imagination to go forth and fight its own war. There's a whole new realm for the imagination to open out and live its forms.
The miniseries Dina's referring to became the documentary The Power of Myth, which originally aired as 6 one-hour conversations between Bill Moyers and Joseph Campbell. These discussions between Moyers and Campbell were filmed at both George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch as well as the American Museum of Natural History, and all 6 were taped during the last 2 summers Campbell was alive. The first episode discussed Campbell's book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
There is a certain typical hero sequence of actions, which can be detected in stories from all over the world and from many, many periods of history. And I think it's essentially, you might say, the one deed done by many, many different people.
The series takes a deep dive into Joseph Campbell's teachings about comparative mythology, wherein he shows the connections and similarities between myths from different cultures, and how these shared characteristics, themes, and stories help humans make sense of the world, and why they've been so important for humans to write about and consider across the centuries and centuries of our existence on this planet.
That's what's worth writing about. I mean, the main character is a hero or a heroine. That is to say, someone who has found or achieved or done something beyond the normal range of achievement and experience. A hero properly is someone who has given his life to something bigger than himself or other than himself.
So in that sense, both Dina and I are heroes. In fact, anyone who dares to explore the unseen places of the world, the abandoned, discarded, left for dead spaces, are also heroes.
Joseph Campbell just knows his shit. He knows all these sacred, ancient, obscure collections of writings from these cultures that we've never even heard of. And it all comes down to, he'll tell you, it all comes down to the hero's journey. And I'm sure you've heard about that. He really brings it home. He makes it real for you. It's very cool.
You can't predict what a myth is going to be any more than you can predict what you're going to dream tonight. Myths and dreams come from the same place. They come from realizations of some kind that have then to find expression in symbolic form. And the only myth that's going to be worth thinking about in the immediate future is one that's talking about the planet, not this city, not these people, but the planet and everybody on it.
And maybe that's where Dina and I are far more similar than not.
While our experiences and beliefs couldn't be more different, maybe the one thing that we share is the desire to understand why we're here.
To understand how our adult self is connected to our child self. To understand whether or not there is a God, a bigger plan.
Or if we're just a crazy, cool accident that happened on a great big rock hurtling through outer space.
If you're just tuning in, welcome to the 4th season of Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast. Join me every other week as I take you on an immersive sonic journey, recounting my expeditions of abandoned spaces across the United States, which I transform into fantastical audio experiences that allow you, dear listener, to dive into my imagination with me, or maybe inspire you to go out and use your own. If you don't want to miss it, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you feel up to it. Also, if you like to read or enjoy amateur photography, just know that each episode this season is adapted from the original All-American Ruins blog, where you can catch up on more of my adventures. Just visit allamericanruins.com or follow me on Instagram at allamericanruins. Abandoned, the All-American Ruins podcast is hosted, written, edited, and produced by me, Blake File, with studio space courtesy of Radio Kingston, WKNY, AM 1490, FM 1079 in Kingston, New York. Special thanks to the effortlessly talented Terri Weagant for bringing Dina's magic to life, my pal Stev for providing very valuable feedback on every episode this season, and my brilliant mom Beth for editing every blog post that I ever transformed into these audio adventures. And of course, to you, the listener. Thank you, my friend, for taking the time to explore these abandoned spaces with me.
My name is Dina Smith, and I'm here with Blake and Julie. We just met in this abandoned, racetrack. And so Blake is asking some questions. And so I lived up the road in Bennington, I would say from 1981 to early 2000s in that